Anxiety is an extremely distressing experience for anyone. People who have never experienced anxiety may notice themselves experiencing some symptoms in the current situation, and people who have a pre existing history with anxiety may notice that their anxiety levels are particularly elevated at the moment. Now, it's not necessarily the case, but if it is, then there are ways that you can reduce the impact that is having on your day-to-day life. And I think the first thing that I always draw people's attention to is acceptance of your anxiety, because when we experience the physiological symptoms of anxiety, it can feel horrendous inside. It's really burny feeling that you just want to escape from, and you feel like as if you just run from it, or if you just soothe it with whatever it is that's available to you, whether it be your phone, whether it be a drink or whatever, that it'll alleviate it. And yet the reality is oftentimes this makes it worse. So we first of all have to recognize our anxiety, recognize that a certain amount of anxiety is inevitable. I mean, everyone experiences, particularly in situations like the current one with the coronavirus. So it's about being accepting of it, allowing it, as opposed to trying to squash it down, because again, the more you deny it, the more those sensations will flow through your body. Whereas if you can acknowledge, okay, I'm experiencing really visceral sensations at the moment, I'm just going to sit with them for the moment and tolerate them, they generally dissipate within a few minutes. So it's about allowing it as opposed to fighting against it. It's also really important that you don't try to push any of the kind of long-term techniques that we use to work with anxiety in the moment of elevated anxiety. So, for example, meditation is brilliant as a daily practice in helping keep your anxiety levels lower. However, when you're in the height of it, your brain cannot get its head around, going into a meditative state. So it's not the time nor the place to be doing it. So don't expect yourself to be capable of doing it. Focus instead on your breathing. Straw breathing can be particularly beneficial. So that's basically taking a really deep inhale through the nose for a count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 4, and then a deep exhale all the way out through the mouth for a count of 8. And if you can, make sure that when you inhale that the lower belly rises up. This means that you're inflating past the diaphragm, and then as you exhale, you should feel your lower abdomen collapse as the breath moves out of the body. Likewise, it can be extremely beneficial for you to actually pinpoint what it is that you're scared of. I mean, oftentimes the flurry of thoughts in our heads don't make any sense. We just have all of these kind of concepts going round and we're letting them run riot. Whereas if we can be very succinct about what it is that we're scared about, it really helps us to work through it. So, for example, as opposed to being like, I'm anxious, I'm scared, I don't know what's going to happen, everything is out of control, I don't know what's going to happen in my life. Write it down, and take yourself out of your head and put it down on paper so that you move from the irrational to the rational and say, okay, I'm afraid that I'm going to be affected financially. I'm afraid that I'm going to get sick. I'm afraid that, and really put a name on it so that you can actually begin to look at the rationale behind what it is that you're worrying about. And once you have identified what the core anxieties are, sit down with them and move through them logically. So, for example, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to die. Put the thought down on paper and say to yourself, okay, am I displaying any symptoms at the minute genuinely? And if you are, then you need to contact a health official. If you're not, then you need to recognize that you're not experiencing any symptoms at the minute, and that by pushing yourself through the emotional experience of having symptoms, you are actually making your day so difficult. So instead recognize, okay, what can I do proactively to prevent this happening? I can ensure that I wash my hands at a reasonable level. I can, I suppose, avoid going outside. I can avoid interacting with other people. I can follow the guidelines that are being provided to me from officials. And it's about being rational about it. It's looking at what you can control and then acknowledging what is out of your control and not trying to control what is out of your control, and recognizing that the thoughts that are filling your mind at the moment aren't necessarily beneficial, and the more you're able to intervene with them, the better off you're going to be. Try to use a positive distractive technique. Now, a lot of people would be like straight to the fridge or straight to a bottle of beer, and this isn't necessarily beneficial. So maybe if you can, try to do a crossword, play with your kids, get involved in something that involves your concentration or your focus. Get a little bit of exercise, try to do anything that takes you away from sitting and ruminating. And then, as I said, always make sure that you write this down, because the thing is, when we are up in our heads, it's very much illogical. It just goes everywhere, and we're very emotionally driven. When we write it down on paper, when we start going through our list of, okay, is this thought actually true? Is this going to be anyways beneficial to me in the long run? Is there anything that I can do to counteract what it is that I'm afraid of? Then it takes some of the sting out of it. Likewise, you can allocate yourself some worry time. You can say, okay, I know this is a genuine concern, but I'm designating between 7 and 7:15 to sit and worry about this. And then I can worry about it all that I want. But before that time, any time that this thought comes into my head, I am going to just move beyond it. I'm going to try and think of something more positive. And it's continuously recognizing your thoughts, observing the anxiety as opposed to trying to deny its existence, and challenging it as opposed to just trying to stuff it down, trying to repress it, or trying to just assume that if you just ignore it, it will go away. Reach out to somebody, connect to somebody, talk about your fears out loud. I mean, struggling in silence is of no benefit to anybody at this stage. And thankfully, we have our phones, there's always somebody at the end of a line that is available to talk to us. So if you can, at any stage, if you find yourself in a really panicky or highly elevated anxiety state, get in touch with somebody and just work through it. Don't feel like you have to carry it all yourself. Reach out, and if needs be, reach out just to a higher power. I mean, definitely having a bit of faith in something external at the moment could be highly beneficial to you, So if it means saying a prayer for your health, saying a prayer for the health of your family, saying a prayer for the health of the world at the minute, if it makes you feel better, then do it. And again, remember that everybody's anxiety is different, so you cannot assume that you understand anybody else's experience, just as they cannot understand yours. So give yourself whatever it is that you need in the moment, but recognize that some things are going to be more beneficial to you in the long run than others. So if possible, opt for what is going to optimize your mental health in the long run, as opposed to what's going to give you a quick relief but really isn't all that beneficial and doesn't actually get rid of your anxiety in the long term. And when you're in a better state, practice a little bit of meditation. Make a plan for something nice in the future. Switch your focus to a more positive place. Find gratitude for all that is good in your life, as opposed to focusing on what potential bad stuff it could happen, and try to just be nice to yourself. I mean, recognize that everyone is bound to be experiencing some level of anxiety at the minute. So it's part and parcel of being human. And that's a very existentialist concept, the inevitableness of anxiety, and just finding acceptance for it and finding compassion for yourself and being very forgiving and kind to yourself in each and every moment. If anyone wants to get in touch with me about anxiety that they're experiencing, do so through the website or on the social media platforms. And I hope everyone stays well.